Okay, we're recording. I think we're live on YouTube. Thumbs up from everybody. We're all looking good. Perfect. Okay, I'd like to officially call this meeting to order at 9:02 a.m. We have all council here except for we have regrets from Councillor Nishikawa and trying to fit in double meetings today. She is going to be joining us, I believe, for the planning meeting we have this afternoon. Thumbs up from everybody. We're all looking good. Just removing a cell phone. It's Deputy Clerk's bedtime listening YouTube of our council meeting, so she's still on. Anyway, we have our CIO, Clerk, obviously, Director of Finance, everybody appropriate here today. We did invite some public comments. None were received. I also do want to acknowledge that we're on lands traditionally occupied by Indigenous peoples. And it's these Indigenous peoples that have cared for this territory for the benefit of future generations. Their stewardship over the years is certainly appreciated. We do not have any supplemental agenda today. As I mentioned, we have not received any comments on today's meeting. I think we've had a couple kicks of the can, so to speak, on this budget topic, which we're dealing with today. So people have chimed in, which we do appreciate, and lots of email correspondence. No supplementary. I will ask council if we have any disclosures of pecuniary interest this morning. Seeing lots of shaking of heads. So that is great. We have no invited delegations other than our Director of Finance. And I will turn the meeting over to Mark at this particular time. Mark, the floor is yours. I will mute and let you go.
Thank you, Your Worship, and good morning, Council. So staff have presented an updated draft operating and capital budget and forecast for 2021 following direction from the last meeting of the General Finance Committee on February 12th regarding service enhancements or a la carte items and approved cost reductions. Staff were further directed by the committee to examine the potential of other savings opportunities to reduce the overall operating net levy increase for 2021 to 2.5%, which we have done in this draft budget. The updated 10-year capital plan is now at $76,900,286, with 2021 set at $6,839,430. This includes the capital items that were part of the a la carte proposals, such as the bylaw vehicle and additional workstations for new staff positions, which are funded by increased transfers to reserves in the operating budget. The 3-year operating budget shows a 2.5% required net levy increase, which before the increase in assessment values is a rate increase of 1.77% or $10.69 on a $500,000 property. The a la carte items and cost reductions approved at the February 12th meeting of the General Finance Committee are shown in Table 2 and Table 3 of the report. The report also provides further details of the council compensation changes that were included in the previous draft. On February 2nd, the General Finance Committee directed staff to go back to the 2020 report, which is hyperlinked in today's report, which also dealt with compensation rates using comparators from other Muskoka area municipalities, as well as removing the life and accidental death and dismemberment coverage while increasing the healthcare spending account and the age limit on travel insurance coverage. As a means of achieving an overall levy increase of 2.5%, staff are recommending some additional cost reductions in the area of fire services with a modest increase in fee revenue in Treasury. Staff are also recommending the balance of the Safe Restart funding be drawn from the reserve in 2021, which was placed there at the end of 2020 to achieve this outcome. Future forecasted net operating levy increases have also been adjusted to reflect ongoing enhanced service costs and the increased contributions to reserves required to fully fund the current 10-year capital budget from the general levy. These budgets will be adjusted during next year's budget process to reflect new information received over the year and council's guidelines pertaining to the 2022 budget. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Director Donaldson. Appreciate it. And I guess with that, I will turn it over to council for any questions on what's been presented to us. We came through our last meeting with the additions and our a la carte items, we ended up at a 3.1%. And through requests, we're down potentially to a 2.5 today. Councillor Kelly, I see your hand is up. Over to you.
Well, thank you. And through you to the director, thank you very much for this. I have two comments, one of them more generic and the other a specific reference to something in your report. I very clearly recall discussing the change in council perks, if you will, the medical coverage issue, and was comfortable moving forward on that one on the basis that it was kind of a wash. We were giving up, I believe, life insurance or something, and moving to the extended benefits coverage, 4,000 versus 2,000. I have no recollection other than from 12 months ago of any discussion around an increase in salary compensation. I must be the only one because I just don't remember this ever being in here. It kind of caught me off guard, a little surprised to see it. And to be very honest with you, I feel a little odd that we spent so much time cutting other operating expense down to hit a target of, I believe it was 2.5%, and we didn't address this issue. So, you know, I understand this was in last draft. I missed it. I didn't see it. I certainly don't recall it. I guess one sort of a follow-up on that one, this references a report that's 13 months old, the staff report from 2020. And I think there's an inference that in last year's budget process, we deferred on this one. And so I'm starting to wonder if when you use the word deferral, does that automatically mean that it populates in the next year's budget without anybody asking for it? In which case, we deferred on a lot of stuff in the last couple of meetings. And can we expect the same thing, that they just sort of materialize in next year's first or second draft budget for consideration? Or do they have to be specifically called out for inclusion? So that's my first kind of generic one, and there may not be an answer for it. I missed it. I didn't know it was in here. I have a hard time approving. I mean, unless it's to be effective at the end of this term, with the first year of the next term of council, I just have a difficult time being comfortable approving, no matter how modest it is, an increase in our salary when we've cut out community grants and other things in order to achieve a better balance on the budget. The last issue, then I'll go on mute, you won't need to hear from me again, is on page 6, I believe, of your report. It's the heading 2021 capital and operating budget and forecast summary. There's a line in there that just gives me trouble because I'm not sure that I understand the use of the language. It says the 2021 township tax rate increase is 1.77%. I think that the 2021 tax increase is 1.77%, not the tax rate increase, unless I don't understand the meaning of that term. That's it from me.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. I'll turn it over to Director Donaldson in a moment to answer, especially the second part, and probably chime in on the first part. A year and a half ago, or a little 13 months ago, as you referenced, this council went through a compensation review of council. It was determined that our health spending accounts were below par to our competitors. So that is the report that was referenced there. Back in early January, I believe at our first meeting, council brought up a request to consider bumping our $2,000 to $4,000 item as a highlight. And it was recommended that we pull back from the report, if you will, that we had a year ago, because everything was outlined there. And I think that's where it got to. And then there was a associated line item around $19,500 or $20,000, I believe, in our last round of meetings that council did keep in. So I don't think it was mysteriously carried over. I don't think that it was because we deferred it a year ago. Council asked for it to be brought back 2 meetings ago, and it was to be considered. We don't want to put it in. We don't have to put it in. That's obviously council's decision, but council did request for it to be considered, and considered it last round. That got us to today. So I'll turn it over to Director Donaldson to maybe provide additional clarity on that, and then also on the latter part regarding tax rate.
Thank you, Your Worship. And yeah, I think I would agree that the point was made to refer back to the report at the previous meeting, and that's where this item was brought in from. With respect to the second point on the tax rate, so there are two components to the operating levy. There's the assessment, and then there's the rate. So the 1.77 refers to the actual increase in the percentage rate that we're levying on property values. Then the balance of the revenue that we would be receiving that gets us to 2.5 is from the 0.7% increase in assessment value that was identified by MPAC for 2021. So there's those two components. So just trying to separate those two out in my report, that the overall levy increase is 2.5% assessment and rate. Strictly just rate is 1.77% of that.
Councillor Kelly, does that answer your second question?
Yeah, I think it does. Thank you.
Okay, and I will circle back to the first comment. If you have a desire that you want to pull that from the budget, that's fine as well, but I'll maybe let other councillors chime in at one point. I see Councillor Bridgman, then Councillor Zavitz.
Thank you, Mayor Harding. I confess I'm like Councillor Kelly. When I went back and looked at all of that again, I did see that we had done that compensation. Councillor Hayes had really focused just on the benefits side of it, so that was all I was cluing in on. My error, but I think what I heard from Councillor Kelly, which I would support, is I don't want to do a increase in our salary, but I think the benefits is fair, and so that's where I sit on this. Thank you.
Okay, we'll leave that comment. Councillor Zavitz.
Thank you, and through you, certainly support the other councillors. Let's not even worry about how it got to where it is right now. The compensation piece, as I understood it completely, and I was sort of in a driver's seat there, was that it was purely to do with an extension of a medical benefit from 2,000 to 4,000. And quite honestly, even the additional item where travel insurance happens up to age 75 from its current 70, I think that could go away. I think the only thing we should be discussing today is the increased benefit from $2,000 to $4,000 for councillors. I certainly will not support any type of a salary increase during COVID to our council. It doesn't matter, again, how it got to where it is right now. I would certainly seek the support of my other councillors in that regard, that it would be purely to do with the $2,000 to $4,000 medical benefit enhancement or increase, and that's all. And I wonder what that means to the to our 2.5 if we were to extract the other pieces out. The second part, if I might, is there was discussion about some sort of a compensatory COVID scenario where, because of mileage, we aren't paying out mileage, but we as councillors are incurring costs, you know, as it relates to internet, increased costs, always going over, ink for cartridges at $85, you know, I know that was considered in the last discussion, but I don't know, I don't hear it mentioned anywhere. So I wonder if that's something Mark could speak to, or we as a group could. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Director Donaldson just to kind of highlight and the implications. You know, my simple math, I think there was a plus and minus to get us to the $20,000, or I think it was 19.5 or 19.7. But if we were to change 10 people's salary or health benefits from 2,000 to 4,000, that'd be a $20,000 hit, if I'm not mistaken. But I'll go to Director Donaldson to kind of explain where we're at. So,
yes, thank you, Your Worship. So the original draft that was presented on February 2nd, there is a policy that the township has that gives automatic inflationary increases to council salaries. There was some factoring in for that policy in the original draft. In the 2020 budget, there was no adjustment for any inflationary increases or anything to do with respect to the compensation piece that was in the report. If it's council's wish to return to the base salary, the same salary that was paid in 2019 and 2020, then that would generate a savings of approximately $15,000 that we could remove from the budget today. And then I think that that would reflect the other changes. I guess I would want to clarify as well, there was some offset in the report with respect to the increase in the healthcare account from 2,000 to 4,000 a year. There was some offset related to the cancellation of life and AD&D. So I guess I would be seeking council's direction specifically on what items they would like to see included and what items they would like to not see included. And again, the components of that salary or compensation adjustment in total salary and benefits is included in the report. They're the same components. We have updated the numbers, but the components are the same. There was the life and AD&D cancellation. There was the change in the age and the travel insurance. There was the increase in the healthcare account, and there was the salary piece to bring council's salary up to the 60th percentile. So that would be an adjustment that we could make pending clarity on the changes that council wishes to make. I'm not sure if the director of HR would like to make any additional comments, or the CAO, but that would be where we are at this point. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. And to address the other question with respect to the increase in the computer allowance, so there was a net zero reduction, so there was no increase to total expense. We reduced mileage by 4,000. We reduced the fees and conference lines in the council's budget by 2,000 for a total of 6,000, and that was increased in the IT budget to provide that additional support to councillors for IT services that they needed on their home services, or however we do that allowance for the additional money.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Zawitz, does that satisfy you where we're at today? I think we're going to have a little bit more of a dissecting, determining what we add or what we don't add particular, because there was an offset to get us to the 20,000, but Councillor Zawitz?
Thank you, and I appreciate the through you, and I appreciate the supplementary. So I concur. I think I've already made my statement. I would like to see personally, and I would hope the other councillors would support no salary increase. The travel is what it stays the way it was, and life and AD&D, it doesn't get enhanced either. So the only benefit we would receive during this COVID time would be the increase in the medical benefit. So for clarity, I can't be much clearer than that. That's what I would prefer. I certainly would ask you, sir, to ask the others somehow, seeking some sort of consensus. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm getting a sort of a nodding of heads from people, but I think what we need to do is have Director Donaldson or our HR, Ms. Lehman, to work out some different math, because there were some additions and deletions, I think, that got us to the $20,000 increase. And if it's just adding to the health spending, I'm not sure that same number is going to be the same. So Director Donaldson, do you want to maybe do some math, or do you want Sarah to help out with that, or how do you want to proceed?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll just do some calculations here very quickly, and we can come to that number.
And then the next question is, what do we want to do about the computer allowance? Councillor Zawitz, you just wanted the health spending. You don't want the computer allowance this year, or you want that too?
Sorry, thank you. Through you, I viewed that as a separate entity. So, I mean, I certainly concur with everyone else's thoughts that there are increased costs. So I think that would be well, perhaps you're not including it as a sidebar, it's included here. So I would certainly support it.
Okay, thank you. As Director works some math, I will go to Councillor Bridgman first, then Councillor Edwards, and see where we go.
Thank you, Mayor Harding. Councillor Zawitz was looking for some feedback. The major cost is going to be that kick from 2,000 to 4,000 in terms of the benefits. The increase to age 75, Miss Lehman may correct me, but that's not going to be very much. And so I don't support taking that out. I think that's a perk, as we've all said, we don't really get that much money. This was part of making our benefit package better for everyone. So Sarah, maybe you can speak to it, but the $2,000 to $4,000 is a done cost. So that's where most of the cost is going to be for us, I believe.
Okay, thank you. I see that our HR manager, Sarah, has turned on her camera, and we'll go to you for a brief moment and then maybe circle back to Mr. Donaldson, who's probably ciphering his math over there. Sarah?
Thanks. Yes, so through you, Mayor Harding, I would agree, that's right. The major cost comes from the increase in the health spending account. We were doing an offset by removing life insurance and AD&D. That was around 5,000. So that I really wanted to make sure that the council was aware that there was kind of that removal of a bigger insured benefit to offset that, because we liked that the health spending was more flexible and the travel insurance was really nominal. I double checked that the rates were still accurate for this year, and it was about $50, I think. So I think Mr. Donaldson has all the details I had shared from the insurance company. So I'm sure he's on the same page with the numbers there.
Okay, before I circle back to Mr. Donaldson, I'll go to Councillor Edwards.
Yes, thank you. I have just a few things about good to the chair. Looking at the wage increase in the Appendix 1, what would it be if we just had a 2% raise, and that rather than jumping it up to the 60%? And I'll tell you why. In future years, that 2%, if there's a 2% the next year, it adds up. And I've seen it happen when we froze it the first time. And I think we haven't had anything. The cost of living has gone up. And that for a councillor, it'd be about $455. For the mayor, it'd be $910. I could live with something like that. I wouldn't go the full amount at this time. But because future councillors going, it should be a decent salary. I would stay with the 4,000 health benefits and that. But I also noticed with the fire department, we took $3,000 out for clothing and $2,000 out for the awards and recognition. Those are volunteers, and I would leave that in. And if we're taking some of our salary out, I would leave that part in. I don't think it's fair. Every time we're trying to cut money, we go into the volunteers and slice and slash them. And I would leave that in myself. And that, but it's just my comments. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to go back to Director Donaldson. I think maybe we need just a little bit more clarity as to where we're at. And I think individual line items, I think, accidental death or whatever was $50. I'm going to assume that'll probably stay in, forget the offset. But I'm hearing pretty loud and clear that council specifically would like to go from the 2,000 to the 4,000. So we need to understand that. Was there a CPI automatic increase to salaries or not? And I think that may also be potentially in there. So, Mark.
Thank you, Your Worship. So in the original draft, there was an approximate $6,000 increase to salaries for all council that was included in that draft. If we're looking at increasing the benefits an additional amount to the 4,000, that would be an additional $20,000. Then we would also make, I guess then the question is whether if the 5,000 is to remain in, then we would get to a number that is approximately 300, sorry. So we would approximately be able to bring the expense down by about $12,000 on a rough number. But I just want to see clarity that the AD&D and the life will remain in. Is that correct?
I'm getting a sense that that would be correct.
Okay, so
I think I see Councillor Zavitz shaking his head, but I think the AD&D and life was about $50. I heard from no, Sarah, maybe want to comment then? Thank you.
Sorry, that was through you, Mayor. That was the travel insurance. The travel insurance is nominal. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So I guess remove the AD&D and life.
remove that. So I would recommend that the council budget, which is currently at $331,144, be reduced to $318,144.
Thank you. And just as a supplemental question to you, what does that provide, council? Does that change, that does not increase salaries in any fashion? And accidental death is removed, or a portion of that's removed. And then also we change from 2,000 to 4,000 health spending. Is that correct?
So my apologies. So that did include the 2%. So if we are not including the 2%, then that would reduce it by a further 6,000. So it'd be 7,000. So it'd be 311,144. If we did not, so if we left the salaries at 2019 rates, current rate that's being paid, increase the healthcare spending, remove the life and AD&D, then we are at 311,144.
Okay, so I will turn to Councillor Zavich. You were one of the first, I think, Councillor Kelly. See your hand up. I'll come back to you just to circle back on this. Either one of you, if you want to chime in with where we're at. I've also heard, I hear Councillor Roberts saying he can't hear me.
There's an echo on my side. Echo on Barb's side as well.
Okay, apparently the echo is Director Donaldson's microphone, or speaker might be on. So that's fine. We have corrected that. Appreciate it. And so the question, I think one question we need to ask is, do we want the 2% salary in there? Yes or no? Right now it's included to get to us a budget of 318, which is a reduction from the 331. I see thumbs up at 2% from a couple, 3 people, thumbs up, 4, 5. So that's 5 people. There's 9 in total of us. That would make it positive and a fair. So the 2% will remain in. Let's go CPI. Councillor Kelly, I'll come to you first. Did you have any other further comments right now?
Yeah, I just thank you, and through you, I just need clarification. When we ran, we understood there was a baseline salary that was being offered in the first year, and I believe, and I'm going by memory, I don't have it in front of me, there was some sort of cost of living allowance that was to be applied every year for the 4 years that we ran. That is the bargain we struck when we ran for election. What I thought we were talking about was just on top of that. And I don't know whether the 2% encompasses that. Cost of living is going to be somewhere around 70 basis points to 95 basis points. I don't know what the number is. Is the 2% to pick that up, or is that in addition to that, or have we waived off on that? I'm not clear, because there's really 3 buckets. There's the base salary, the cost of living, and then what I thought was being proposed in this most recent report was an increase above and beyond both of those.
Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Director Donaldson again. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the increase in the 2%, there was no adjustment last year. The policy does provide for an annual adjustment, and there was approximately 1% last year, and there will be 1% this year. So I think that's the 2% is a bit of a catch up, I would say. The compensation piece that was in the report would have generated approximately a 5% increase over the period. So that's, I think, the difference between the suggestion that Councillor Edwards has raised, and my understanding of how I would get to 2%, and the council and the previous adjustment in the report.
Okay, thank you. So again, if I can summarize that to everyone, we did not apply a CPI last year, which was included. We removed that last year, and the idea is to try and play catch up just with the 2%, 1% a year, if you will, for the past 2 years. There was also in the original report a 60th percentile market compensation to figure out all of our salaries, where they are. That is what is being forgone today. We are going to remain where we're at and not adjust our salary compensation. The other one that we are contemplating is the 2,000 to 4,000 health spending account. With the 2%, I believe, if my math is correct, with the removal of AD&D and the $2,000 to $4,000 health spending account, we end up at $318,144 versus the original $331, which is in the report. So we are a $13,000 reduction in the overall levy at this particular point. That's, I'm looking at Director Donaldson, that's where we're at. So that's a quick summary statement. Does anybody have anything different they want to add or subtract from there? Councillor Zavitz.
Thank you. Through you, I wonder if I could direct a question to Sarah in terms of the MedBen piece, where yearly or annually or 2020 experiential, what was the actual draw on that account? If it follows that there's 10 people drawing a $2,000, so was that did we actually experience a $20,000 cost last year, or did everyone not draw it out maximum and so we only spent 16.5, or is that more of an insurance plan where we just get the benefit for 12,000 bucks, we get up to $20,000 worth of exposure? Is that confusing?
I don't think so. Sarah?
Yeah, through you, Mayor Harding. I don't have those numbers, so I can't answer you exactly, but I can tell you that we're self-insured for that benefit. So we do pay the actual claims on that. So if it's not used, it's saved. Another part of that policy, or the way we have it set up, is that a portion can be carried over for half the next year. So there's a high likelihood that the full amount of the spending account would be used. That's
Okay.
the best I can give you today.
Sorry, Sarah, thank you. That's, I think is appropriate. So council, where we're at today right now is from the numbers that were presented to us, we have roughly a $13,000 reduction. But that will also include allowing us to have a health spending going from $2,000 to $4,000. So everybody's okay with that? Just a nodding of heads, and we can continue moving on to any other questions. There we go. Director, you've got your marching order, so to speak. Any other questions on the budget at this particular point? Or can I read the resolution to pass the budget? Oh, no. I tried. Okay, I'll go to Councillor Edwards first, then Councillor Roberts. Oh, Alan, I think you're still muted. There we go. There
Sorry.
you go.
Thank you. Since we've saved $13,000, as I had mentioned before, with the fire budget, I would put in the recognition and awards back in, which is $2,000, and the clothing allowance. That would come up to a total of $5,000. And that, because we set to get down to 2.5, we've added an awful lot of wishes on our list, and I don't think the firemen should have to suffer for us. And that we've got it down below what we were asking for, and I would put that back in. Thank you.
Maybe I'll go to Chief Morrell, who had offered up that, and maybe can explain a little bit of where that money was being used for, or is it savings or not? Chief?
The specific line item, if the council could repeat exactly where that comes from, I can explain what we were offering up.
Councillor Evers, I believe you saw a $2,000 line item and a $5,000 line item.
Yeah, on page, let's see now, did I get it? I think it's on page 78. 06572, clothing was reduced from 5,000 to 2,000. And 06573 was reduced from 10,000 to 8,000. That's the awards and that. Like I say, our firemen do all this type of work. I would leave that in.
Chief Morrell.
Yeah, we were asked anecdotally through other methodologies to look for savings in our fire department, and we looked at these two areas. And last year, council was looking at actuals versus spend. And last year we did not have an awards banquet, so we offered up that piece for the recognition. And the second piece for the uniforms is what our members wear around the building here, station wear. We offered that up as a savings so that we could make some savings, because council had wanted some savings from our fire department.
Okay, thank you. So I guess the question, we're not giving up anything specifically in that. I mean, this is trying to reflect where we were in 2020 and where we anticipate being in 2021. Are we shorting our firefighters in this particular case, or we're just trying to be a little more reflective of where we may be in budget? Chief Morrell?
Yes, we would be shorting our fire department members, because we would not be offering an award ceremony, and we would not replace the t-shirts that they wear with their station wear.
Okay. Councillor Edwards, you would like to put that back in?
Yes, I think I would, even if we don't have an awards banquet. You know, we give our staff a turkey at Christmas, something like that. I think we should give some sort of a bonus if we don't have the awards banquet or whatever they call it. But our firemen, if we were paying full-time firefighters, we'd be paying an awful lot more. And that's so it's good for morale as far as I'm concerned. And I would definitely leave it in. Thank you.
Okay. Council, we're getting a nodding of heads for that. Okay, Director Donaldson, I think that was a 5 and a 2 for $7,000, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, anyone else? Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, and through you, Chair, to the fire chief here, and thanks. Great, you guys have been very busy out there, and I fully support anything we can do to reward. Don't have a banquet, give them some Tim Horton coffee cards, give them shirts, give them hats, give them stickers, whatever you give those guys and ladies, whatever they need. And my question was the same, within the same vein, on page 5, and let me pull it up here in front of me so I can see it. And maybe you've already explained it, but on page 5, it talks about fire services, lower department expenses based on 2020 actuals by 20,000. So is some of the you just talked about within that 20,000, and what are the other pieces that you took out? Am I reading this correctly?
Through you, Chair, I would have to go and look at the list that we provided to administration. That I'm looking towards the treasurer for that right now. I don't have it in front of me.
Mr. Donald.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm just referencing the communication I got. So there was additional, it was a $3,000 reduction in purchased goods and services. There was an additional reduction, excuse me, in uniforms of $3,000. And there was an additional reduction in meeting remuneration of $2,000. And the large reduction was in the area of fees and conferences, which was $6,000.
Okay, follow up on that. And through you, Chair, to fire chief. If that stuff is needed, if you're just shaving to shaving, so someone said, give me 2.5%, the heck with it. You guys can take what you need. So that 20,000, is anyone hurting? Is anyone losing? Are we not advancing our fire staff? We got to retain these people. So I'm really questioning the 20,000.
Chief Morrell, maybe you can provide some comment on that. We've added some of that money already back in, Councillor Roberts, which we just
understand that.
But the additional cuts, again, to reflect more of an actual where we were. Chief Morrell, maybe you can just provide a high level. Are you worried about our department or not?
Through the chair, through you, sir, to the councillor and to all of council, I guess. Purchase of goods and services, that line item, that we reduced that from, I believe we had it in for 23,000 and we reduced it to 20,400. By the count that I'm looking at, that seems about right. That was to reflect some items that we had been planning to replace for this year that we could put off. As the year goes on, it becomes a little harder to get some of the smaller items purchased in time. Uniforms, I've already explained. We would just delay putting some Class A uniforms on some of our senior staff and replacing some of the accoutrements to the uniforms for our regular members. When you look at recognition and awards, I think I explained that. That would be mainly due to the fact that we were not planning to have a medal or award ceremony this year due to COVID, and the fees and conferences line item, that is also reflective of COVID because a lot of fees and conferences are being placed online. There are still some expenses that we would place in there, but again, we were looking for savings for the department as directed by council. So we can,
Okay, Councillor Robert, if I may,
place them back in if needed. Sorry.
right, if I may, Chief Morale, so there was an offering to try and reflect actuals that got us to 20. We've already put back in $5,000 into this budget for uniforms and for awards along the way so that we can compensate accordingly. And I think, you know, we are trying to be respectful to our taxpayers in this, and our fire chief has said, hey, he could manage with a few less. We've already put some back in. I guess the question is, do we want to put it all back in? Or do we want to, you know, listen, I think, to our fire chief that's offered up some money at this point? So
with all due respect, I'm really pleased that fire chief did look sharpen his pencil and look at it. But I've been in this budget game for over 40 years, and sometimes staff will just give a number because they have to get to a number. And when I'm saying I went through that list, and I'll leave it to the discretion of the fire chief, but uniforms for your senior staff, it's a badge of honor when they go to conferences and they go to things. So get those uniforms back in the budget, is that part, at least. So I asked that they be put back in, and I leave that to the discretion of Fire Chief Morel.
I believe we have done that, Councillor Roberts. Again, we put $5,000 back into this budget, so. Okay, anybody additional comments right now? Okay, anybody else on the budget? Councillor Jagowitz, you're remarkably quiet. There it is. Councillor Jagowitz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a comment, but I'm going to save it till after the vote. So I'd appreciate if you would recognize me after the vote has been taken. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else, any comments or questions on the budget? So if I can turn to Director Donaldson right now, we've made some changes to the council line item. We've added some stuff back into our fire department. Maybe we can get a running total as to where we are at as a before assessment growth increase. Our target we got to, I think, was 2.5. Where might we be at?
So, Your Worship, the adjustments that have been made this morning is a reduction of 13,000 to council, an increase of 5,000 to fire, which is a net change of an $8,000 reduction. The proposed net levy increase was $12,592,088. That is now $12,584,088, which is a 2.43% increase over 2020 levy of $298,837.
Okay, 2.43% is where we are at. Council, any other comments at this particular point? Okay, and I think we might actually have a resolution to read. I just want to say also that I appreciate staff. I appreciate Director Donaldson for your leadership this fall and this winter to get us to this point. We set a target. We came in slightly ahead. We've been able to add a number of items to this, and we've now actually exceeded that target at 2.43 versus the 2.5. So congratulations to all staff. So I have a resolution that is moved by Councillor Bridgman, seconded by Councillor Edwards. Be it resolved that Township Council approves the updated Township of Muskoka Lakes 2021 draft operating budget and capital budget and forecast attached to the staff report entitled Draft 2021 Operating Capital Budget and Forecast, dated February 24th, 2021, for the general tax supported services be approved as amended, and that the 2021 report on excluded expenses, Ontario Regulation 28409 regulation regarding expenses excluded from the 2021 draft operating budget and capital budget and forecast be approved. Any other comments or questions from council? Council, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Mr. Donaldson, that is unanimous. Madam Clerk, council, we have an approved budget. Congratulations. That is great news. Councillor Jagowicz, you wanted to comment. Thank you.
I did. Thank you. Thank you, Chair, for allowing me to comment after the budget. I just wanted to thank Director Donaldson and his staff and council for coming forward. So I think is a reasonable budget. However, there are some comments that I feel obliged to make, and I didn't want them to influence the vote. I've spent some time with Director Donaldson over the last couple of days, and have discussed with him areas I thought could have been treated a little bit differently. And he made a very good arguments on behalf of his department heads. And I think I was pleased with the way the budget was handled. And I think that that going forward, that bodes well for us. What I wanted to point out is that this budget does include bringing $419,000 from reserves that will not be there next year. And overall, we're actually taking $1 million more, 1.1 million more from our reserves than what we're putting in. And if you look closely at the revised forecast sheets for 2022 that the director has provided you with, his initial cut is showing a 7.3% increase for 2022. So although this is a good budget, there's a lot of work to be done. He has also assured me that some areas that I suggested could possibly be reduced, that he will work hard to have those savings occur, and those would then be put back into reserves. So overall, I think it was a good process, but be prepared to roll your sleeves up for next year. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Appreciate it. And I would concur, we have some work ahead of all of council as we look at our asset management plan and we end up with the new fire master plan to determine where this township is going. Councillor Mazan, you have a comment?
Thank you. And through you, I also didn't want to derail the actual budget discussion, but in my life previous to this, we would have had something after a big project called a debrief session. And I'm trying to understand because how we could do that effectively, Director Donaldson, if we can provide feedback, whether it's from the public or council, as we look to tweak. And I'm thinking primarily around process, because there were some of the things that we were trying to react to and adjust to. We're living in this world of COVID. You're new in the role. We have new systems. And I've had the luxury of sitting back and watching this and listening to some of my peers, hearing from the public. And I just wanted to make sure we have some kind of a mechanism to, I would say, capture lessons learned, so that as we go into the next session, we're not repeating some of the same mistakes. And a very, very quick example, last night, I think I saw on Facebook a communication piece saying today is our budget meeting. So again, not to constantly be laboring the point about communication, but I don't know if that's always setting everybody up for success to be able to participate effectively from a public standpoint. So just little things like that. I'm trying to understand how we could do that, so we can make sure that next year's timelines sessions is just done as effectively as we possibly can.
Good comments. I'll turn to Director Donaldson for, as you've just managed your way through our first budget, your own learning and debriefing and where you want to go, I guess, for 2022. Mark.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Council, for your support. I certainly, it's been a very interesting process. My first budget with the township, new staff, new budget system, and we certainly are looking to make refinements for next year. We absolutely will be doing a lessons learned exercise. I've already started a bit of a list myself, so I will be meeting with senior staff here in the township office. I'll also be reaching out to members of council to get your feedback and thoughts in terms of improvements for next year and processes and those types of things. I'd also like to take the opportunity to do some outreach to the community groups that participated in the public session and wrote into us, just to get some additional thoughts from them. on ways that the process could perhaps better be tailored to meet their needs as well. So certainly, you know, here at the township office, under the leadership of our CAO, we have certainly been marching to a tune of continuous improvement, and I'm fully committed to that. And I'm looking forward to the input and feedback from members of council, from staff, and from the committee. Thank you.
That's great, and we look forward to that. Councillor Roberts, and then I'm going to move on to our next agenda item.
So I'm standing between now and the next agenda item, so I'll be very fast. Thank you. Okay, thank you for that lessons learned, Councillor Mazin, and thank you for thinking about it, Director Donaldson. That is fantastic that you're going to do that. I also want to make sure that we forget what Councillor Kelly had brought up about value. And so with lessons learned, we need to take a look at the whole process and how we're doing the process. And can we tweak the process or refine it so that it becomes even more transparent than it is? So I just want to make sure that that is noted, and that we do that sooner than later and not wait till the fall time. Thank you.
I think continuous improvement in everything of which we do, and continuous improvement for value for the dollar, is something that is certainly on everything our CIO does, and I think it's trickling down through the organization. So I appreciate our CIO on that. Moving on to continuous improvement, so to speak, or modernization. Let's move to, I'll go to Director Donaldson. Maybe you can introduce this report and where we want to go. Director Donaldson.
Thank you, Your Worship. So staff are presenting a report to seek council support to move forward with an application to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing with respect to an intake for proposals for funding on modernization initiatives. Council will recall that the township received $604,100 in 2019 for modernization initiatives. These funds have gone toward funding development of our strategic plan, acquisition of our budget software and asset management application citywide, or CityWorks, excuse me, as well as some of the service master plans that are being undertaken this year. Staff are looking to put forth a new proposal to fund areas under the digital modernization and service enhancement priorities identified in the minister's letter. As identified in our strategic plan, a digital strategy will look at our service delivery model, identify gaps, and ensure we are optimizing the use of IT to deliver services in the township. This work has already been identified in our current work plan for 2021. Staff will also submit a joint proposal with the town of Huntsville to explore a replacement of our current accounting system and tax billing software with the introduction of our new Questica budgeting and CityWorks asset management. It's an optimal time to explore new solutions that would potentially allow us to improve our connectivity between our systems, and a new implementation would dovetail nicely with our planned refresh of our account structure and reporting improvements. These investments would be funded up to 65% through this program, and staff would come forward seeking approval at a future date, if successful, to draw funds from our IT reserve to fund the balance. Expression of interest is due to the ministry by March 15th. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions on this.
Okay, thank you very much. Council, any questions? Another great report. Perfect. I have a resolution then moved by Councillor Hayes, seconded by Councillor Jagowitz. Be it resolved that Township Council confirms its support for the submission of applications for, number one, the Township's Information Technology Services Review Project, and a joint lower tier submission for a review and update of municipal accounting software in response to intake 2 of the Small and Rural Municipality Municipal Modernization Funding Program. That's a big sentence. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor? Madam Clerk, that's carried. Okay, Council. I have a resolution moved by Councillor Kelly. I don't believe we have any other new business. No closed session, but moved by Councillor Kelly, seconded by Councillor Mazan. Be it resolved that bylaw 2021 to confirm the proceedings of council be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. How appropriate that 2021 is our budget. All those in favor? Carried. And finally, moved by Councillor Kelly, seconded by Councillor Roberts. Be it resolved that this meeting adjourn at 9:56 a.m. All those in favor? That is carried. And we'll see everyone with our special planning meeting at 1 o'clock today. Thanks, everyone, and congratulations again, Mr. Donald, on your first Municipal Lakes budget. Awesome. Have a great day. See everyone in 1.